Test.
Good evening, Council. We're going to call our special council meeting to order for Wednesday, December the 11th, 2024 at 6:37 p.m. Number 2 is our declaration of pecuniary interest. Any members have a declaration of pecuniary interest tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on. Number 3 is our approval of the agenda. We have a motion the agenda of the special council meeting for December the 11th, 2024 be approved as presented. Moved by Councillor Waters, second by Deputy Mayor. Comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. Council number 4 is in-camera items. We have one item this evening regarding Fuller Avenue, Robert Street signalization project land purchased at 187 Robert Street. It's regarding file ENG 2024-22. You have a report on close. Anybody need to go into closed session to ask any questions of staff? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on with the motion on the close report for council and open. So we have a motion that reads, that council approve the purchase of the Daylight Triangle parcel of land located at 187 Robert Street East for the purpose of adding to the Fuller Avenue right-of-way, as outlined in staff report ENG 2024-22. I'm going to look for a mover, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor DeRush. Comments or questions? That's appropriate and open. Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. Moving on, number 6 would be a question from media and public. I assume there's nobody online. Emily? And I suspect Trevor probably doesn't have any questions for the closed matter. We'll move on to a motion to adjourn at 6:39, moved by Councillor Waters, second by Councillor Vadabunker. All in favor? And we're adjourned. We'll be back at 7 for regular council. Thank you. Good evening, Council. Good evening, community members. Thank you for joining us for our Council meeting for Wednesday, December the 11th, 2024. I'm going to call our meeting to order at 7 p.m. Again, welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're going to start, if you don't mind, Kelly, with a public safety announcement for our attendees this evening.
Hello, and welcome to this evening's council meeting. Before we start, just a few messages. For those that require the washrooms are located just outside of council chambers, to the right, down the hall. Town Hall is protected by a single source fire alarm system. Should the fire alarm activate, please exit the building through the rear doors or the side doors, make your way down to the parking lot closest to the church. In the event of a medical emergency, please dial 911. The address for Town Hall is number 10 Robert Street West in Penetanguishene. And I'd like to remind everyone that we have a public access defibrillator just outside of council chambers. I wish you a safe and good council meeting. Bonsoir et bienvenue à la ville de Penetanguishene et à la salle de conseil. Avant que nous commençons ce soir, une couple de messages. Si vous avez besoin de les chambres de bain sont situées juste à l'extérieur de la salle de conseil, au bout du corridor à votre droite. La salle de conseil est protégée d'un système alarme à feu de 1 stage. Si l'alarme à feu sonne, veuillez quitter la salle de conseil par les portes à l'arrière ou de côté et on se rejoint dans le stationnement près de l'église. En cas de problèmes médicaux, veuillez signaler le 911. L'adresse ici est le numéro 10 rue Robert-Ouest à Penetanguishene et je veux vous rappeler qu'il y a un défibrillateur public juste à l'extérieur de la caserne. Je vous souhaite une bonne soirée. Merci. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Welcome, Councillor Roux. Councillor Roux is joining us virtually this evening. Welcome. Number 2 is our land acknowledgement. Penetanguishene respectfully acknowledges that we are on the traditional and treaty territory of the Anishinaabe people and their ancestors, now known as the Williams Treaties First Nations territory. This includes the Chippewa Tri-Council, comprised of Bosley First Nation, Rama First Nation, and the Georgina Island First Nation. Alderville, Curve Lake, Hiawatha, and the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nations. Also once home of the Huron-Wendat, and more recently the historic settlement of the Métis, Penetanguishene is now home to many Indigenous people. Penetanguishene is proud of its Indigenous name, and more importantly, that for thousands of years it has been and will continue to be an important homeland and gathering place for Indigenous people. We recognize that we are the stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters, and are responsible to ensure that our Mother the Earth is here for future generations. Council, moving on, number 3 is our welcome and council commitment. Again, welcome everyone for joining us this evening. I'm going to ask Councillor Marshall if you can guide us through the council commitment, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Nous sommes reconnaissants des nombreuses grâces accordées à Penetanguishene et à ses citoyens, dont la liberté, les possibilités et la paix dont nous jouissons. Que nous soyons des intendants dignes de tout ce que nous ont été confié. Nous demandons que toutes les personnes présentes, à celles et celles qui n'ont pas pu se présenter, nous aident à promouvoir une bonne gouvernance. Que nos décisions à titre de membres du Conseil soient éclairées et que nous soyons toutes renforcées à prendre conscience de nos devoirs et responsabilités. Que l'on nous accorde la sagesse, les connaissances, la volonté et la compréhension qui nous permettront de préserver la bonne fortune de la ville et au bénéfice de tous, ainsi que de faire de bonnes lois et prendre de sages décisions. Merci de votre présence ce soir.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Councillor Vadabunker.
Thank you, Mayor Rawson. We're grateful for the many gifts which have been bestowed upon Penetanguishene and its citizens, including the gifts of freedom, opportunity, and peace that we enjoy. May we be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. We ask that all in attendance and those who could not be here assist us in promoting good government. May our decisions as members of council be enlightened, and may we all be strengthened in our awareness of our duties and responsibilities. May we be granted the wisdom, knowledge, will, and understanding to preserve the good fortune of the town for the benefit of all and to make good laws and wise decisions. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you, Councillor Vedabunker. All right, council, moving on. Number 4 is our approve the agenda. We have a motion that the agenda for the regular council meeting for Wednesday, December the 11th, 2024 be approved as presented. Moved by Councillor Waters, seconded by Deputy Mayor LaRose. Comments and questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? That is carried. 5 is declaration of pecuniary interest. Any members have a declaration this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on. 6 is our open forum. Open forum is an opportunity for members of the community to address council about any matters that's important to them. We ask that you register with Madam Clerk before we start that process. Madam Clerk, is anyone registered for open forum this evening?
Thank you, Your Worship. There is no one registered for open forum this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Emily, anyone online that wanted to participate in open forum? Thank you very much. Moving on, number 7, statement by members. This is an opportunity for members of council to address the community about the good work they're doing on your behalf. We're going to start with Councillor Marchand.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple things. I had the opportunity to participate and represent the town of Penetanguishene at First Light on the opening evening of November 21st. Always a really wonderful event in our local community in Tay Township. On November 27th, I had the opportunity to also participate and thank all of the volunteers who give many hours of their own time on the various committees of the town of Penetanguishene. So we had a lovely dinner put on by the Women's Auxiliary at the Legion, and we made a piece of art. And I'm not sure where the art is. I think it might be downstairs, but we had this really great opportunity to put pieces of string together, and it just really showed collectively what we can do as a community. So that was really great. I also participated last Friday evening at the National Day of Remembrance and Action on Violence Against Women. Actually, I participated in 2 events. La Clé hosted an event on Thursday evening, which was sponsored by Calibri, who is a women's shelter and support group out of Barrie that provide francophone services for women in facing domestic violence. And then on the Friday evening, I was at a program put on by Rosewood Shelter, La Maison Rosewood, and it was held at their Operation Grow location. I just wanted to highlight that this year was, unfortunately, the number of women and children dying at the hands of domestic violence is not going down. This year in the province of Ontario, 53 women and 10 children died at the hands of a family member, a male, due to domestic violence in this province, and it was especially a sad evening when we also paid tribute to a local young woman from Midland who succumbed to violence and a death based through the hands of someone who said they loved her. So it's really sad, and unfortunately, femicide continues to increase and not decrease in our country. So I was happy to be there to just show support and look at how we can, support this kind of action stopping in this province. And on a lighter note, I also just wanted to highlight and congratulate our U15 team who won Silver Stick last weekend, and will be heading to Forest in January to represent Penetanguishene minor hockey. So really wanted to just do a kudo to that group of individuals. They were super surprised and super stoked that they won. So it's a great representation of our small town, and our hockey spirit is alive and well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marchand. Councillor Vedabunker.
Thank you, Worship. 2 items. November 25th, I chaired Committee of Adjustment meeting, and on the 27th, I, along with other members of council, attended the committee member appreciation dinner, as Councillor Marchand had mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vedabunker. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think we were all at attendance at the Legion last week, and it was a very nice, well-attended for our volunteers that help our communities so much. Another thing we did is yourself and Councillor Waters and myself, we represented the town at the Midland Santa Claus Parade. It was a windy, stormy, rotten weather day. We also seen Councillor Vedabunker there with his group, so we all got through it. December 2nd, the mayor and I attended Georgian Village Christmas dinner for the residents of our local old age home. We've gone for a few years now, and another wonderful evening for them and for us. Last Friday, I attended our tree lighting, and again, the weather played a wonderful part down there. The wind howling off the lake at 1,000 miles an hour didn't help the cause, but the tree lit up and it looks nice. It looks like a real Christmas tree, as it should. And yesterday, the mayor and I were lucky enough to attend the 50th anniversary of Classic Hairstyle in the mall. The owner was there. They had a nice little spread put on for everybody, but we were all saying, can you imagine? She started at 21 years old, and this is her 50th year. So congratulations to them. And that's it.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor DeRush.
Thank you very much. Although this isn't put on by the town, but it certainly brought the town alive. Christmas on the Hill occurred probably 3 weeks ago, and it was like the Pope had come to Penetanguishene. There was tons and tons of people. So kudos and congratulations to the businesses who get together and collaborate to really put on a very special evening. And it certainly does bring the town alive. It's very exciting. I also last week I attended the Wellbeing and Accessibility meeting with the group of volunteers. We always do great work. We are championing the age-friendly community plan, and we also champion the accessibility plan. So we continue to work through those documents. I also attended this week the Midland Penetang Transit Committee, and this is an opportunity for us to work with Midland to go over the transit services that we provide to the towns of Penetang and Midland and ensure that we continue to collaborate to offer great services. And on a side note, always good to know that we currently have 192 seniors who have passes, and that allows them to use the transit for free. So again, great service for anyone over 65. If anyone's interested, please call the town and they'll walk you through getting your pass. And again, I also attended the committee appreciation dinner. Thank you to all our wonderful volunteers who put in so much time and effort to guide council in sound and pertinent decisions. And the tree lighting, of course, always a great hit. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor DeRush. Councillor Waters.
Did pretty much what everybody else did. Had a library meeting on the 25th of last month with the volunteer night at the Legion. Great roast beef. Santa Claus parade on the 30th. Finance meeting on the 4th. Economic development meeting on the 4th. Was over at thing with Rosewood. I'm not sure what they called that center, that building, but anyways, it was very emotional night. The poor girl that was doing the thing almost broke down. Just unbelievable, 53 women that lost their life and 10 children. It's just tragic. We had planning and development today. And other than that, I've had a lot of people come in and tell me what a great job the snowplows are doing in town.
Thank you very much, Councillor Waters. Councillor Leroux.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess the fact of the matter is that I haven't been able to attend a lot of those events. I did enjoy the dinner at the Legion with staff and volunteers. As everyone well knows, an accident that happens very quickly can certainly change your style of life. The operation, the complete hip replacement was successful. However, there's been some other complications that have occurred since then. So I'd just like to thank everyone for their concerns and their well wishes and appreciation of yourself, Mayor Rawson, and Deputy Mayor LaRose visiting me at RVH when I was recovering. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, and thank you for being with us and our continued support for speedy recovery. CEO Lease, on behalf of administration, please.
Thank you, Mayor Rawson. Just a couple things I would note. Send appreciation to our Recreation and Community Services staff for the excellent work they did at the Festival of Lights last Friday evening. It was already noted the weather impacts, but certainly some last-minute pivoting that they did. So kudos to them for their hard work. I attended the Severn Sound Environmental Association Climate Exchange alongside Councillor Marchand, as well as Andrea Betty, our Director of Planning and Community Development, on the 21st of November. Well attended, well put on seminar with a couple guest speakers. So certainly a continued conversation that needs to happen around climate change. And lastly, administratively, we are working through a fairly substantial digital records management implementation. We're really just kicking it off with some training through our Director of Legislative Services, Cuddy Cole, and did some all-staff training. So really kind of starting to scratch the surface on that, and an exciting endeavor for the municipality as it relates to records management. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Elise. I won't repeat everything everyone has already participated in. I attended most, if not all of them. Couple comments. I do want to highlight the annual board and volunteer appreciation. It was spectacular. A lot of great feedback from people about that work, but I think we owe a tremendous due of gratitude and thank you to Madam Clerk, Kelly Cole, who every time I asked everyone, they said Kelly was the one that quarterbacked the entire event. So Kelly, thank you for everything. I know there's been a lot of support by the team, but thank you for doing that. Hugely impactful. And I know everyone I talked to really appreciated that we took the time and energy and effort to thank them, but thank you for making it a tremendous success. You already mentioned, Elise, about the tree lighting. Sherry, to you and your team, thanks again. That was a tremendous event. My last comment I'll make echoes what Councillor Marchand spoke about regarding the National Day of Remembrance. And I was there this year and again last year, and I think, one of the things that I left that night was, what are we going to do? Like, we go to these events, but what are we going to do? And I thought about a lot that night. I've thought a lot since then. I don't know the answer, but I think we need to think about what's our role and how can we take a leadership role. I'm hopeful in the new year we can come together and think our way through that, because it is, you're right, it's not going down, it's happening and continue to happen. We can't accept that. We need to take a leadership role. So thank you for bringing that forward. All right, Council, we're going to move on. Number 8 is our public meeting. We have 2 this evening. So here we go. This is a public meeting tonight under Section 34 of the Planning Act to consider 2 zoning bylaw amendment applications for the properties at 1376 Sandy Bay Road, file number ZA 12-2024, and for 1457 Tate Point Road, file number ZA 13-2024. To Council, the purpose of this public meeting is to provide an opportunity for the public to make comments. The purpose of the public meeting is not to engage in a debate regarding the merits of the application, nor is it intended to be a question and answer session. There's an opportunity later in the meeting to ask questions on the application after the public meeting has concluded. Andrew, I'm going to ask if you can introduce the application regarding 1376 Sandy Bay Road. If you can confirm any notification, if you can note any correspondence received, and if you could outline the proposal for us, please.
Certainly. Thank you very much, Your Worship, members of council and the public. So the application is a zoning bylaw amendment for the property at 1376 Sandy Bay Road. The town received the application on October 25th, and notice of the statutory public meeting was given on November 21st, 2024. We have received only one piece of correspondence that was part of your agenda package, and that was from Enbridge Gas. So in this proposal, the application was also submitted with a severance application for a lot addition. And so what is happening on this property is 1376 Sandy Bay Road is severing a parcel of land off the property and adding it to a property at 212 Gilwood to create a larger land holding. And that is to facilitate a septic system on the parcel that they're acquiring from 1376 Sandy Bay Road. Under the town zoning bylaw, however, the bylaw requires that any uses or accessory structures such as the septic system be in the same zone category. And therefore, as a condition of approval of that severance, it was a condition that they rezone the parcel that they're severing to be in the same zone category as the property on 212 Gilwood. So it's fairly complicated and technical, but largely it is to add additional land to the property at 212 Gilwood for a traditional septic system and ensuring that the zone for both properties is the same zone. So I don't believe anybody here tonight on behalf of the owner of the property. However, I can answer any questions.
Thank you, Andrew. I'm going to ask if anyone in the audience wishes to make any comments on the application based on land use planning issues relevant to the application. If you do, I'm going to ask you to go to the podium and state your name and address for the record, please. And I'll ask again if anyone in the audience wishes to make any comments on the application based on land use planning issues relevant to the application. If you do, I'd ask you to go to the podium, state your name and address for the record, please. Emily, is there anyone online that wishes to participate in this public meeting? Okay. We don't have the applicant or agent, so there's no concluding comments. We'll conclude both public meetings at the end. So, Andrew, I'm going to ask if you could kindly introduce the application for 1457 Tay Point Road. If you can confirm notification, if you can note any correspondence that's been received and outline the proposal for us, please.
Certainly. Thank you very much, Your Worship. So the application at 1457 Tay Point Road is an application for a zoning amendment. It is similar to the one we just previously heard in that it is a condition of severance approval. This property did obtain approval from the Committee of Adjustment to sever off some properties, some residential building lots from the larger parcel. As part of their development application, they did go through and do an environmental impact study. The property does have some environmental features on it, and part of that study did determined that the zone boundary area of that environmental protection land should be expanded. So what the application is to rezone part of the land, which is currently rural, into an environmental protection zone in accordance with the environmental impact study that the owners of the property prepared in support of their applications. So this is a condition of approval, and if approved, they would enable them to create those lots for building purposes. So the correspondence we did receive, again, was from Enbridge Gas, and that was part of your package, your agenda package later on.
Andrew, is there anyone from the applicant in attendance that wishes to address?
I think there's people in the audience. I'm not sure if they wanted to speak to the application. I think they could answer potentially any questions if you have any.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask if there's anyone in the audience that wishes to make comments on the application based on land use planning issues relevant to the application. If you do, I'd ask you to come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, please. Emily, is there anyone online that wishes to participate in this public meeting for 1457 Tay Point Road? And I'll ask again if anyone in the audience wishes to make comments on the application based on land use planning issues relevant to the application. Please make your way to the podium, state your name and address for the record, please. Seeing none, we don't have the applicant or agent for concluding comments. So with no further comments, we're going to thank everyone for your attention and participation in this public meeting. And we'll be hearing more at a future motion later on the agenda this evening. We'll close that public meeting. We're going to move on, Council, to number 9 is delegations and presentations. We have 2 this evening. 9A is a presentation from the Severn Sound Environmental Association regarding drinking water source protection update. And I believe it's an online presentation. Welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. Madam Clerk, it's perfect. There we go. Thank you. So good evening, everyone. Thank you to Your Worship, members of council, members of staff for allowing me to speak to you today. As mentioned, my name is Melissa Carruthers, and I am the manager of source water protection at the Severn Sound Environmental Association. I'm also a risk management official and inspector under the Clean Water Act for 8 municipalities, including the town of Penetanguishene. Next slide, please. So this presentation will touch on the following 3 things. So it will give you a very brief overview of the Drinking Water Source Protection Program. We'll give you an update from a risk management official perspective and an update from a Source Protection Authority standpoint. Next slide, please. So I know you know all this, but to start super simple, source water is the water from lakes, streams, rivers, or underground aquifers used to supply public and private drinking water systems. It comes from one of 2 sources, so either ground or surface water. However, when we talk about the Drinking Water Source Protection Program, we are talking about the protection of only municipal drinking water sources from overuse and contamination. Next slide, please. The program gets its power from the Ontario Clean Water Act, so it's provincial legislation. It is the first step in Ontario's multi-barrier approach to protecting municipal drinking water sources, and the other 4 barriers deal with the distribution system and are dealt with through a different act, the Safe Drinking Water Act. Next slide, please. So although source water fits into provincial legislation, it's being implemented across the province on a local level through local source protection plans. There are 19 source protection regions in the province, and we are a part of the South Georgian Bay Lake Simcoe Source Protection Region. So this region is over 10,000 square kilometers in size, consists of 52 municipalities, and has the greatest number of municipal drinking water systems of all regions across the province, approximately 1/3. And of those, 3 impact the town of Penetanguishene. Within the South Georgian Bay Lake Simcoe region, there are also source protection areas and authorities who operate on a watershed basis. In our region, those consist of the Lake Simcoe region and Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authorities and the Severn Sound Environmental Association. So the SSEA is one of 2 non-conservation authorities to act in this capacity. Next slide, please. There are 2 key vulnerable areas that were defined as part of the source protection process. Those are called wellhead protection areas, also known as WAPAs for groundwater systems, and intake protection zones, or IPZs, for surface water. Within the town of Penetanguishene, you only have WAPAs, so they are defined based on the time it would take for groundwater to reach the well, with the furthest being 25 years. You also have an issue contributing area associated with the Robert Street WAPA based on the known TCE, or trichloroethylene, issue. So because of this, there's additional protections in place in that area. And a key thing to note, so the program only applies in WAPAs and IPZs, and the map on the right-hand side of your screen shows those areas. Next slide, please. There are 22 prescribed drinking water threats under the Clean Water Act, which are addressed through the program. So it doesn't apply to everything. So 20 of those deal with impacts to water quality, and 2 deal with water quantity. Within the town of Penetanguishene, all 22 threats do apply. They span multiple sectors, such as municipal, industrial, residential, and agricultural, so nobody is really exempt. Next slide, please. So a question you may be asking is, how do we actually protect the water through this program? We do it through implementing policies in the local source protection plan. So the source protection plan, it is a document that contains a range of policies that direct action on the landscape. The goal is to manage existing threats and prohibit future within those local vulnerable areas. And as previously mentioned, each source protection region has its own plan. Alongside the plan, there is science behind the program, which is laid out in the assessment reports. There is one for each watershed within our region, and they go into great detail about each system, how they are mapped, what threats apply, and so much more. Next slide, please. So that's a very brief overview of the program, sort of kind of what you need to know. Under this program, the Severn Sound Environmental Association, we do fill 2 completely separate roles. The first is as a risk management official and inspector. So this is actually a municipal responsibility. However, based on Town of Penetanguishene Bylaw 2018-66, which was adopted by Council in September of 2018, I act on your behalf to fulfill that obligation. So as you can see from the slide, in that role, some of the things I do for you are implement prohibitions or negotiate risk management plans. So these are legal documents between myself and the person engaged in the activity, typically landowners, local businesses, to make sure their actions do not impact the municipal system. A significant amount of time has been done in the past by myself and the previous risk management official to determine if any threats were actually on the landscape. To ensure no new threats end up on the landscape, part of my job is to review and comment or issue notices on planning and building applications within the WAPAs, which requires me to work closely with your planning department. There's also an annual reporting requirement, so I do that as your risk management official. And as many, I'm sure you know, there's lots of answering inquiries from members of the public and municipal staff. There was a July 1st, 2024 deadline to complete all existing risk management plans. So that process resulted in 2 risk management plans within the town, which will need inspections and for the foreseeable future will be on an annual basis starting in 2025. It's also noted that there are changes coming to some of the 22 threats and the thresholds, which may result in additional threats and risk management plans within the town. Some of these threats may involve the application of salt. So the point I'm kind of trying to make here is, although we did meet a pretty significant deadline, just noting that the program, we're not stopping. We need to continue. The program does have value and will continue to evolve over time. Next slide, please. So Severn Sound Environmental Association has also been designated as a source protection authority under the Ontario Regulation 28407 and acts in this capacity as per various regulations under the Clean Water Act and Ontario Regulation 20518 under the Safe Drinking Water Act. Currently, this work has been funded by the province. So this work is more the higher level policy piece and revolves more around the science behind the program, where policies apply and making sure those are all current and up to date. It also involves educating members of the public about the program and supporting municipalities to make sure they're aware of their obligations and have the tools they need to succeed. On the flip side, with the annual reporting, I do meet with members of your staff every year to make sure that we're meeting that deadline. And also, due to a change in 2018 to the Safe Drinking Water Act, we're responsible for leading the process when changes to municipal systems occur from a source protection standpoint. So that requires me to work closely with your Public Works Department. Next slide, please. So in summary, Drinking Water Source Protection Program is provincial legislation to protect municipal drinking water from overuse and contamination. It's rolled out locally, only applies within vulnerable areas, only to the 22 prescribed drinking water threats. SSEA acts as a source protection authority, the higher level policy piece as per various regulations, and as a risk management official implementing policies on the ground as per municipal bylaws and agreements. And with that, I'll open it up to questions.
Thank you very much, Melissa, for your presentation. Council, any comments or questions for our presenter tonight? Seeing none, thank you so much for your presentation and for the work you do for our community. And thanks for joining us this evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Council, we're going to move on to our next delegation presentation. It's 9B. It's a presentation from Maxima and the County of Simcoe regarding the Simcoe County Municipalities Insurance Pool. I'll invite Trevor Wilcox, our General Manager of Corporate Performance for the County of Simcoe, and Ryan Durrell from Maxima Insurance Services to the podium. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us this evening and for presenting this topic to us.
Thank you, Worship and Council. As representative of the county, I just wanted to say that this is a process that we kicked off a couple of years ago at the direction of council and through the advocacy with your CAOs as well. We've pulled this together in terms of feasibility study. Now we're getting to the end where we're ready to implement, and Ryan will take you through exactly what that means. And fortunately, this is one of the very few things that I can say in my career that I brought forward that is kind of a no-brainer, benefits every single municipality that will be involved in this. And you'll see that from the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Trevor. Thank you very much for having me and allowing me to speak to your group. I have a presentation. I'm going to do my best to look at it at the same time as speaking. So we'll kick things off straight away. Next slide, please. So a little bit of background on how I got to this podium, thanks to Trevor. In response to insurance premiums over the last 5 or 6 years being somewhat volatile, the Simcoe County and the municipalities gathered together and put together a request to look at alternatives to the traditional insurance model, which is typically purchasing insurance directly from the insurance marketplace. And some due diligence was done in the form of a feasibility study to ensure that there was a sound business case for moving forward with an alternative program. And implementation is now underway and commitment is required. Next slide. The proposed solution at the end of the feasibility study and analysis was to implement an insurance pool. And insurance pools aren't new. There are 2 existing municipal insurance pools that have been in operation for over 25 years now. Both the Waterloo Region Municipalities Insurance Pool, which was formed in 1998, and the Durham Municipal Insurance Pool, which was formed in 2000. You might be asking yourself why it's been 25 years since somebody formed a new pool. And the reason is that starting in around early 2000s, we had the longest and most prolific soft insurance market, with prices regularly reducing over that 15-year period until about 2019, when everybody realized that the insurance premiums were going up significantly over the following few years. So now is the time to form a new insurance pool, and Simcoe County is leading the way. That said, I do want to point out that the other 2 pools continue to be successful and deliver value to their constituent municipalities throughout that marketplace. So it's not like insurance pools are only useful in hard insurance markets. It's just when we have the most attention to get them put in place. Next slide. So why should we start an insurance pool? Next slide. Because insurance is fundamentally expensive. When you purchase insurance from the marketplace, there are dollars that go places other than serving the needs of the community and paying claims. Approximately 34% of the $21 million roughly paid in insurance premiums in the Simcoe County and the municipalities involved in the feasibility study actually went to pay claims, and about 66% of those premiums went elsewhere, either to friction costs like insurance broker costs, operational costs for the insurer, or profits and risk margins for the insurer. So really only getting about 34 cents on the dollar for our insurance premiums. Next slide. To drive this home is a great analogy, which would be, well, I'd like to think it's a great analogy since I put it in the presentation, but we're hoping it lands with you. Self-insurance is very much like making your own meals at home. And insurance is very much like dining out at restaurants. Both have their places. Next slide. So we buy insurance because it is convenient. It's a single premium for the entire year. It gives us annual cost certainty. Next slide. Insurance also meets specialty needs like cyber, for example, which is not contemplated within the pool at this time, but also for losses that are very, very large. Things that the municipalities involved cannot necessarily withstand all on their own. Next step. And also insurance comes along with it, baked into it with service, including claims and risk management services. Next slide. So why should we buy less insurance? First and foremost, cost. I don't know if anybody in the room currently eats all their meals at restaurants, but probably largely the reason why you don't do that is either sodium or cost. So keeping costs down is important. So that's why we want to focus on buying less insurance, or at least the right amount. Next slide. The other reason why we might not buy insurance, or why we should buy less insurance, is because we can build out in-house capabilities. The risk management and the claims management capabilities can be done in-house with staff within the community. Next slide. So how do we go about doing that? As I mentioned, first and foremost, risk management allows us to avoid claims that may be coming our way, or to reduce the cost of them when they do happen. We can increase our deductibles and therefore take on some more of the financial responsibility. And the reason why we suggest pooling is because we can use that to reduce the volatility of taking on that additional deductible, but also create a central resource for Simcoe County and its municipalities to coordinate and deliver the claims and risk management that we need. Next slide. What happens to your insurance coverage under a pool? Fundamentally, you get the same or better coverage than you had before. Instead of purchasing, as in the case of all the municipalities participating, 18 separate insurance policies separately procured, it's one very large insurance policy that covers everybody with the best in class available to all participants. So one large policy covering more than or the same as the outgoing policy, and just streamlining it into a single policy procured centrally. Next slide. The pool structure works as follows. Largely the same deductible as municipalities experience now. So if municipalities, say, for example, have a $10,000 deductible, that will likely stay in place, and municipalities will be able to continue to deal with smaller matters themselves within that deductible. Above that amount, the insurance pool will take over and cover claims up to a deductible, a group deductible of $500,000. And that layer will be shared across the municipalities based on actuarially determined levies, to be discussed later. And above that, we will continue to access the insurance market by purchasing excess insurance above that. Next slide. Deductibles will be selected differently depending on the municipality, with smaller municipalities maintaining smaller deductibles, very much the way it works now, and larger municipalities, and for example, the county, having larger deductibles. That said, this actually reduces how much larger municipalities will be accessing the pool. So, for example, in an extreme case, the county, for example, would only have access to $400,000 of pooled resources versus a smaller municipality, which would have up to $490,000. Next slide. just to drive this home. And the big question is, what happens if we have a very, very large loss? The reality is not that much different than the way it is now. The municipality pays the same deductible it would be today, give or take, and we are proposing some slightly different deductibles, but nothing significantly different. Then the pool will carry on from that point forward. So for example, in a $15 million loss, the deductible at the municipal level might be $10,000. The pool will cover the next $490,000, and then an insurer will be in place to pay for the next $13.5 million, $14.5 million. So we are not proposing to take on significant losses. We are only looking to cover the predictable layer of losses within the pool. Next slide. So in the status quo currently, the municipalities in Simcoe County are paying about $20.6 million of insurance premiums into the marketplace every year. And whether or not there are losses, all those premiums go out and there's nothing to be seen back. The municipalities are also retaining $1.76 million under the deductible. So right now there's a significant amount of money leaving the municipalities and never to be seen again. Next slide. What we're proposing we do is restructure this so that in the yellow portion, we take on a portion of that risk and we retain those premiums to the tune of $8.4 million. And that will be used to pay for the losses under the $500,000 as mentioned before. And we'll continue to buy excess insurance to the tune of $7.7 million. And this will generate an overall savings in the long run of 19.2% versus the status quo. Next slide. So the levy itself will not be made up of two pieces, and there will be nothing extra for municipalities to do. The levy will be a single price that includes all the components. So it's not like the municipalities will have to go out and procure excess insurance separately. It will all be baked into the single levy amount, which replaces your existing premium. Next slide. But inside that single levy amount, there are a number of different components. So the gray bar is the losses to be retained, or the expected losses to be retained of $4.5 million. A buffer as calculated by the actuary for volatility in those claims of $815,000. Operational expenses for building out those risk management and claims management resources mentioned earlier in the presentation of $1.575 million. The excess insurance as noted earlier of 7.7, and we're also including an additional buffer of 1.5 million to build out surplus to ensure that the program has additional stability. But wait, there's more. Next slide. We are going to generate savings largely by reducing the amount of for-profit commercial insurance being purchased by the municipalities in the pool and placing a significant portion of that in a not-for-profit structure, which is the pool itself. Consolidating the insurance placement service is one key area where we're going to save a significant amount of cost. And additional claims savings will materialize over time as we lower the costs of managing claims on a go-forward basis, but that's not actually reflected in this analysis. So there are likely further savings to be had as we roll down the road. Next slide. So planning for stability and ensuring that we don't come back and say, well, we got the number wrong and we've had some claims and now we need some more money. We are suggesting taking a highly conservative approach at the inception of the pool. And so instead of capitalizing on all 19.2% of the savings out of the gate, we are recommending that the municipalities elect to provide just a 10% direct savings and keep the additional 9.2% savings to accumulate a surplus in the pool for added stability. This provides a belt and suspenders startup surplus for enhanced stability. Will provide a second wave, and in fact, a third wave of savings in years 3 and beyond 5, and smoother year-over-year budgeting by ensuring that there's lots of buffer to absorb any volatility in the claims. Next slide. So this recommended approach creates 3 different layers of added surplus and conservatism. The first being the actuarially derived risk margin based on the claims analysis, a $1.5 million annual contribution to surplus, and an additional $2.06 million of deferred savings, which will accumulate as equity for the municipalities in the pool that could later be deployed to the benefit of the municipalities. Next slide. So essentially, this looks as follows, starting with the far left, the status quo, starting at what the experience is today. We will see a 10% savings overall in total cost of risk immediately in years 1 and 2. We're expecting that sufficient surplus will have been built out that we can provide an additional 6.7% savings in years 3 and 4, and possibly an additional 9.2% savings in years 5 and beyond, totaling a 25.9% savings over the current status quo approach to procurement. Next slide. Some operational considerations. The planned launch date is June 1st, 2025. This streamlines setting up the administration. The Simcoe municipalities have various insurance renewal dates, none of which is June 1st, but we need to pick a date to get things started. And doing so in the spring is good for a number of reasons. One, it's off cycle from budgeting, which allows staff to manage administration. It's also a great time to be securing quotes from the insurance marketplace. January 1st is actually a very difficult time for insurers because they are themselves filing their own financial plans and securing reinsurance, so it's difficult to get terms. And also the current policies allow for midterm cancellation, in some cases with minor penalties and in some cases with no penalties at all. So it'll allow all the municipalities to stream into the pool on a common renewal date of June 1st. Joining requires signing the subscribers agreement by February 14th, 2025. It provides for a 5-year initial commitment, which allows us the negotiating power to deal with the excess insurance carrier. The advisory board that will be created by that agreement will be the one that oversees the operation of the pool, so no single municipality will have the control over it. In fact, there will be 1 seat per municipality in the pool and 1 vote per seat, regardless of size. So the county would have 1 vote and Penetanguishene would have 1 vote. The advisory board will set out the pool levies annually, so divvy up the costs of the insurance and the retained risk. And a pool manager will be put in place to start building out a team to provide the services to the municipalities on a localized basis. The agreement also lays out exit and entry conditions. And I think that's important because entry will be more challenging outside of the inception of the program than it would be to get on board on June 1st. Next slide. Not all the municipalities are required for launch, so it's not as though if one municipality decides not to join, that the savings will be significantly changed, and they're not required from an administrative standpoint, so we don't need 100% participation, although we're deeply hoping for it. Accumulated surplus will need to be matched if people want to join later, and that would be a challenging barrier to entry, and members may not meet criteria for joining later on. And last but not least, the pool advisory board may simply not want to accept new members if everything's going smoothly. So making sure folks join on day 1 is really important. The pool staff will provide all the services that municipalities typically get from insurers and will in fact tap into the insurer resources in addition to that. So there will be no internalizing of services at the municipalities. In fact, there will be access to more services on a centralized basis within the pool. And those will be all dedicated to Simcoe County and its municipalities. I think that's the last slide. Trevor, did you have any additional comments before we wrap up? No?
Ryan and Trevor, thank you so much for the presentation. And Trevor, thanks so much. I know there's been a lot of work done on this. I think it's an amazing thing. Like you said, it's once in a lifetime. It's tremendous. I appreciated the presentation at County a little while ago, Ryan. Council, this will be before us at Committee of the Whole later, but do you have any questions for our presenters tonight? Okay. You got one? No. Okay. Thank you, Councilor Vandenberger. Do you have a question?
I was going
to. Yeah, floor is yours.
Thank you, Very interesting presentation. I was around on the staff side many years ago when this concept was first presented at the CIO's meeting. So it's nice to see, Trevor, and you've been around a while as well, to see it actually come to the state. So congratulations on getting it here. I do recall that there used to be a pool that existed across the province, and it was a company that used to offer insurance services to municipalities, and several years ago they ceased to operate, and I can't remember all the specifics about that, but do you care to comment on that pool and what the observations were as why it ceased to operate?
Happy to do that. The pool in question was OMEX, which was the Ontario Municipalities Reciprocal Insurance Exchange. It operated on quite a different basis. First of all, it allowed all municipalities to enter. It also allowed all the municipalities to exit at whim. And one of the key issues here is that 5-year initial support and also the geographical adhesion that you all have with one another, as well as the services. I think it's fundamentally different period in time for insurance entities. If you may recall, OMEX was created, I believe, in the 1980s or 1990s, and insurance regulation was quite different. And I think one of the challenges OMEX had is that as regulation got stricter and stricter around the amount of reserves necessary to shore up their operation, it became a challenge to collect those premiums, and eventually reciprocals were the reciprocal subscribers or the municipalities decided to start leaving OMEX. First and foremost, the insurance pool doesn't have those same regulatory obligations. And probably just as important, they're already in place, and we're planning for robust surplus out of the gate to avoid just those issues. So a lot of the things that I think caused, and I say think because I wasn't there and it's just industry hearsay, but a lot of the things that I think ultimately caused OMEX to disband or to go into runoff have been contemplated and taken into account in preparing the feasibility study for this pool. And largely it's around creating a robust surplus policy out of the gate, and then equipping the advisory board with the tools necessary to ensure that it's managed very effectively to avoid any ups and downs in premiums and avoid any kind of retro assessments which might destabilize the funding of the program.
A follow-up, Trevor, on that?
Remember that program? Remember considering it, I think at least one or two of our municipalities may have actually participated in that. Vastly different approach, as Ryan outlined. You could have Sudbury and Windsor in the same pool, which presented very different risk profiles and experience profiles, whereas the actuary that's looked at this insurance pool has seen that our municipalities are very similar. We have very similar risks, very different similar profiles. So the type of insurance and what the insurance that we need is very similar. So because of that, we'll be able to do this very easily in terms of joining together. Thanks.
Councillor Wedemeyer, follow-up?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a separate line. With respect to the reserve, if I can use that term, you talked about robust. So will that be professionally managed in terms of investing and having that money available? And the second part of the question, if I may, is just with respect to, I would imagine you would have a target that you want to achieve in terms of that reserve. And what happens if through the collection of the annual premiums you exceed the amount that you need to collect?
Fantastic questions. Genuinely, I mean that, because I think first and foremost, the advisory board will have access to actuarial advice, the same as insurance companies do, around how to set levies and how to monitor and to manage the surplus. The policy you're asking about around reserve management or surplus management is just that, a policy established by the board around how much is necessary, and often that policy is monitored with the help of actuarial resources. And it does set sort of a lower and upper boundary. If you start to approach the lower end of the boundary, then you take thoughtful steps over multiple years to re-enter the safe zone, if you want to call it that. And if you exceed that, which is often the case within the insurance pools, if you exceed that, then you actually have to think thoughtfully about how to give money back or how to redeploy it. And I think a great example of this is in the Waterloo insurance pool. They had sufficient surplus that when the cyber insurance market became very challenging back in 2021, they were able to rely on the additional surplus they had to go fully self-insurance and avoid paying extreme cyber insurance costs, and also provide access to cyber insurance resources and funding to the members that couldn't get the insurance. So it not only is it managed to the extent that it makes sure it doesn't get too little, but it also gives it back when it's too much and make sure it's in a zone that allows it to be used to make the operations of the municipalities better on a go-forward basis.
Follow up, Trevor, or are you good? No. Councilor Vetter-Bunker, follow up.
Thank you, Worship. Just with respect to risk management, and I'm a firm believer in risk management, but it requires an investment by the municipality to manage its risks. And part of what I saw on the slides was that the pool would assume some of that risk management. And my question has to do with perhaps a participating municipality doesn't look at the value of risk management, say, as another municipality might. How does the pool deal with that? Is that something that the pool will deal with in terms of ensuring that risks are managed across the board?
The pools, plural, will often put in place sort of standards of practice or best practices around risk management, provide the resources to municipalities to implement those annual training on a global basis, and make sure that all the municipalities take part in that and take it seriously. I think first and foremost, what's important is that it centralizes the claims data so that can be analyzed and figure out where risk management resources are best spent. So you can only do that by looking at the data and having access to it in a consistent and fulsome format. And so probably priority number one is putting in a claims management system that applies to all the participants of the pool. And from that data, you can drive risk management initiatives. If you see that there are more slips and falls or snow clearing issues or whatever the case is, you can start to drive risk management dollars from the pool towards that. And in fact, the pool can provide access to a lot of resources to municipalities to make implementation that much easier, including centralized vendor vetting, et cetera, for things like GPS systems on snowplows, et cetera, just to give an example. So I think first and foremost, data drives decisions. And secondly, the pool has risk management resources that it can then go out and push out to the municipalities to ensure that all the municipalities are sort of at the same level, and really press on the municipalities who are falling behind by providing extra tools and resources and pressure, frankly, within levies. If claims are higher in one municipality for the same risk, the levies will start to go up in that area, simply to cover off the costs. No one municipality should be paying for the lack of risk management from another one.
Thank you.
Councilor Mershaw.
Thank you. Just a quick question for me. I appreciated the last slide in terms of understanding how this was going to be administrated and trying to just understand what additional burden might not be the right word, the administration that it will present for staff, because there is some pieces that we will have more. When we look at the deductibles under the 10,000, that you said that there was more flexibility, or would they be handled from the municipal side? But I'm assuming we'd work in conjunction with the resources at the county with regards to this insurance. So just trying to understand the process.
I feel like I'm taking up a lot of airtime here. Thank you, Trevor. I think you sort of hit the nail on the head. It's if the municipality will largely interface with the pool in the same way the municipality would with their insurer currently. So maybe it's a change of email address, a a change of phone number. But essentially, the municipality will deal with the pool in the same way it does the insurer currently. So it shouldn't be adding a burden. In fact, what it should do is allow municipalities to avail itself of centralized resources around claims management. For example, if that's taking up a lot of staff time, you might be able to rely more heavily on pool resources to do that. It should also allow things like access to contract reviews and so on, risk management resources in that area that might take some of the burden off of the individual municipalities who don't have dedicated resources. But if municipalities have dedicated resources, they can continue to do that the way they do now. So really it's a choose your own adventure, but in no case is it supposed to be an additional level of work for staff outside of somebody has to be appointed to be on the advisory board, which is probably 2 meetings a year, hopefully, if we do well.
Councillor Marshall, follow up? Are you good? Councillor LaRue, did you have a comment or question? Thank you very much. Any other members, comments, questions? No. Okay. Trevor, thank you again for your leadership. I think this is just a good example of the County of Simcoe's support of the lower tiers. I appreciate the partnership. I appreciate the leadership. Thank you for all you do and helping us move forward. Ryan, thank you again for your presentation and supporting this process. Thanks very much. Council, we'll look at this later, FCS. Thank you. All right, Council, we're going to move on. Number 10 is our adoption minutes not already confirmed. We have a motion that the following minutes of council meetings be confirmed and adopted as circulated. I have special council for November the 13th, 2024, and council for November the 13th, 2024. I'll look for a mover. Councillor Waters, second by Councillor Vadabankar. Comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. Moving on to number 11 is our consent agenda. Before I read the motion, does anybody want to pull this item for further comment, or we're good? Councillor Vadabankar.
Thank you, Worship. I just have a comment. I just wanted to say thank you for bringing the report forward. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, number 11, our consent agenda reads that the following consent agenda items having been given due consideration be received for information. And I look for a mover. Councillor Marshall, second by Councillor Vadabankar. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. Emily, is Councillor LaRue still connected? Okay. Thank you. All right, Councillor, we're going to move on to number 12, our matters for consideration. 12A is regarding our public meeting we had earlier. So the motion reads that the public meeting report PL-2024-60 for the zoning bylaw amendment file number ZA 12-2024 concerning 1376 Sandy Bay Road be received, and that any matters identified in the report PL-2024-60 and at the public meeting be addressed in a future report to committee of the whole. I'm going to look for a mover. Councillor Marchand, second by Councillor Vadabankar. Comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. 12B is regarding the other public meeting this evening. Motion reads that the public meeting report PL-2024-61 for the zoning bylaw amendment file number ZA 13-2024 concerning 1457 Tate Point Road be received, and that any matters identified in report PL-2024-61 and at the public meeting be addressed in a future report to committee of the whole. I'm going to look for a mover. Councillor Waters, second by Councillor DeRush. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. 12C is regarding removal of the restriction from title regarding Champlain Shores subdivision PL 2024-63. The motion reads that the Council of the Town of Penetanguishene approve the release of section 118 restriction for blocks 9 and 13 on registered plan 51M-1234 within the Champlain Shores subdivision, and that the Director of Legislative Services, Municipal Clerk, be authorized to sign the application to delete the restriction from title. A mover? Councillor Waters, second by Councillor DeRush. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And that is carried. 12D is regarding our 2025 budget final draft. Report is FIN 2024-33. The motion reads that the Town of Penetanguishene Town of Penetanguishene 2025 operating budget be approved as presented, and that the town's 2025 and 2026 capital budgets be approved as presented. And further, that a 2025 operating contribution to the Penetanguishene Public Library in the amount up to $526,585 be approved. And finally, that a 2025 capital contribution to the Penetanguishene Public Library in amount up to $22,000 be approved. I'm going to look for a mover. Councillor Marchand. A seconder? Deputy Mayor LaRose. Comments or questions? Okay, I have a couple, and then we'll look for a vote in a second. So the first one I'd like to identify, there's been a lot of public discussion regarding policing costs in the province. We did receive correspondence from the province November the 29th about policing costs in municipality. And we're looking at about an approximate estimate of savings to the municipality in 2025 of about $331,000. We didn't have that, council, before our final budget turn. So this will come forward with a staff report when we set the rates in the new year. Staff will bring a report forward, and at that time we can look at what council's wishes will be, whether we reduce rates, whether we put a reserve, what we do. I'm sure Madam Treasurer will bring that forward in due time. So I think in about March we'll look at that. I'm also hopeful, council, that we'll get some correspondence and further dialogue with the Ministry of the Solicitor General regarding policing costs at Central North Correctional Centre. As you know, we've advocated on behalf of the municipality for some time. I'm hopeful, I continue to be hopeful that we'll have good news to share with the community in 2025, but just so that we can let the community know that we are doing a lot of work on that. And in the new year, when we do this, Madam Treasurer, bring a report forward about that. Are there any other comments from council about this motion before we call for the vote? Okay, Councillor Vadabonker.
Just so that I'm clear then, so with respect to the proposed 4.5% tax rate increase, 1.5% of that is assigned to policing, and that equates to $195,000, and we receive $391,000. So we're going to look at that later in 2025 when we have the opportunity to consider a staff report and before we set the final levy. Is that correct?
Thanks, Councillor Vadabonker. We're going to let Madam Treasurer speak, but if you recall during the budget process, Madam Treasurer did identify some was a reconciliation from 2023, what are 24 reconciliations and onwards. But you're right, Madam Treasurer will bring a report forward, probably February, March timeframe with what this looks like, what the actual impacts are, and what the decision will be from council at that time. So you're right where we're at today, and we'll get further guidance and direction in how we wish to proceed. Madam Treasurer, anything to add on that comment?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Vadabonker. Just one other thing to clarify. The reduction that we did receive will come to us, which we haven't received yet. It'll come to us in the form of a revised 2025 billing. But a large part of that reduction is also related to 2023 reconciliation. So it's not all based on 2025 policing costs.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm sure if maybe Madam Clerk, it will be on a future CIP, the letter we received and how it is. And to Madam Treasurer's point, it is a complicated formula how we got there. It will be on a future CIP for the public to understand what that looks like. But am I right, Madam Clerk? Probably next council will be on the CIP for public to see.
That's correct, Your Worship.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions, council? Seeing none, we have a mover, we have a seconder. We're going to call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. Moving on to 12E is regarding our Georgian-based Snow Riders agreement. We have a motion that reads that the draft agreement between the Corporation of the Town of Penetanguishene and Georgian-based Snow Riders be approved as outlined in Attachment 1 of Staff Report RCS 2024-21. And that the Chief Administrative Officer and the Director of Recreation and Community Services are hereby authorized to make minor alterations to the agreement that does not substantially change its content. And finally, that staff bring forward the necessary bylaw for council approval. And I look for a mover. Deputy Mayor LaRose, seconded by Councillor Marchand. Comments or questions? Okay, I have a couple. Maybe I can ask the CEO if you might be able to address a couple of these. I know in the past we've had members of the public come forward talking about excessive speeds by snowmobiles through the community. So I'd like to see, does the report speak to this, the agreement speak to this, and how can we address that with the snow reg? I think overall it's positive. I think we need to address the speed through our community. And the other thing I'd like to address for council, this is a multi-year agreement, but I want to highlight, like, this is here with us tonight and in December. Traditionally, we bring everything through committee of the whole. This should have come to committee of the whole, and then we would ratify at our next council meeting. I think our staff's done a great job. For a year now, we've been working with the snow riders to get this, and the delay has not been on our part. It's been on the snow riders' part. So unfortunately, we weren't able to get this to our traditional pathway through the committee, but thanks for bringing this forward to get it to ratification and working as effectively as you did up to this point. CEO, can you just identify a couple of those pieces, the speeding and the contract if you need to be?
Thank you, Your Worship. The agreement, there is a component in the agreement that touches on kind of the roles and responsibilities of the club, and one of the pieces does talk about informing its members of a number of things. One of them under Section 11 talks about the speeding piece. So certainly the club is trying to do its best around informing its members. What I would suggest is if there is feedback from council around specific areas that maybe we want the club in conjunction with the OPP to add some resources to, we'd be happy to receive those comments and that feedback and relay that through to our friends at the Snow Riders Club as well as the OPP. So happy to take any feedback that committee and council has. From time to time, we do get feedback from the community, but I think now is a great time, no better time than now, to be candid, that the season is almost starting. The second piece, just with respect to the timing, our Director of Rec and Community Services, Sherry Desjardins, has been working quite diligently, and Your Worship, you spoke to this, but she's been working diligently with our friends in Tiny Township to take an aligned and collaborative approach with the OFSC, in particular the club. You know, it's a lot of effort and a lot of time has been spent getting us to where we are today. There has been some challenges, I know, at the on the OFSC's end, but to your point, I would echo your remarks that a lot of heavy lifting was done, in fact, by staff on our end in conjunction with our friends in Tiny to make this happen today. So appreciate those remarks.
Thank you. And thank you, Sherry, for your work on bringing this here. Council, further comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. 12F is regarding our Fuller Avenue pole anchor parcel expropriation bylaw. The motion reads that the council approve the expropriation of land which is described as part of Lot 116, Concession 2, Geographic Township of Tay, now in the town of Penetanguishene, being part of PIN 58446-0017 LT for the purpose of the construction, maintenance, and operation of public utilities and related. Ryan, I did this last time too. I had to refer to you.
Appurtenances?
There you go. There too, required for the Fuller Avenue intersection improvements project. And that staff bring forward a bylaw authorizing expropriation of subject parcels. I'm going to look for a mover. Councillor Marshall, a seconder. Councillor Waters, comments or questions? Seeing none, we're going to call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. Moving on, 13 is our presentation and consideration of the report. I've mentioned this a couple of times. After council finishes, we move into committee of the whole. So what committee of the whole discussed last month, we bring it forward this month to discuss, further debate, or amend or change. That's what we're going to do right now. So the pieces we're going to discuss is what council discussed at committee of the whole of November. Okay. So our first one's regarding transportation environmental services section. I'm going to ask Councillor Vetterbunker if you can help me with the report, please.
Thank you, Worship. So as part of the Committee of the Whole meeting on November 13th, the Transportation and Environmental Services section presented a number of items. First, it's recommending that 2 consent items be received. Midland Penetanguishene Transit Ridership third quarter report and the update on the Navy Lane drainage improvements. There was one item being recommended for approval this evening, and that is Transportation Environmental Services section is recommending that Council approve an update to the snow removal level of service policy as presented. Thirdly, we had one new referral item, and that's related to line painting at pedestrian crosswalks to recognize celebrations such as Remembrance Day and the Francophone community. And there's one item remaining on the consent agenda. And Your Worship, that concludes my report from the Transportation Environmental Services section.
Thank you very much, Councillor Vadavunker. And the motion reads that the recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole report related to Transportation Environmental Services section be approved. It's moved by Councillor Vadavunker, seconded by Deputy Mayor LaRose. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. Councillor Roux, Recreation Community Services section, please.
Okay. Your Worship, the fact of the matter is that I was not at the November meeting due to my dilemma, and that Councillor or Deputy Mayor LaRose chaired the meeting, and so I have not to prepare other than perhaps Councillor or Deputy Mayor LaRose could give an update there.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Mayor was ready. I was just reaching just to make sure, but he is ready here. Thank you so much, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you. At section, we had 2 consent agenda items. One was the Museum and Heritage Committee meeting minutes from September 12th, 2024, and a memo from the Director of Rec and Community Services re boat tour small operations for the small vessel. We also had one matter for consideration, and it was the special event policy, which was an update, RCS-2024-19. We added one item to our referrals, and that was the Water Museum that we had a presentation on. And with that, Your Worship, that was all.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. And the motion reads that the recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole report related to Recreation Community Services section be approved. It's moved by Deputy Mayor and seconded by Councillor Roux. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. And Councillor DeRush, Planning and Development Services section, please.
Thank you. The Planning and Development Services section had 5 consent agenda items, starting with the Committee of Adjustment minutes of September 30th. The next 2 items were regarding zoning bylaw amendment applications for first 1376 Sandy Bay Road and secondly 1457 Tay Point Road. The 2 last items were the law enforcement activity report followed by the short-term rental licensing bylaw review. It was recommended that these items be received for information. And on behalf of the section, I ask that Council approve the recommendations as presented. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor DeRush. And the motion is that the recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole report related to Planning and Development Services section be approved. It's moved by Councillor DeRush, seconded by Councillor Waters. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. And Councillor Marshaw, Finance and Corporate Services section, please.
Thank you. From the Committee of the Whole meeting from November 13th, our section had 2 items on the consent agenda. The first one was the 2024 Scholarship Program recipients, and the second item was the Developmental Charges Index Policy Update. We had 3 items that came forward for matters for consideration. The first one was the temporary borrowing policy, the annual sign-off from Council. The second was the 2025 interim property tax levy. And the third item was Council remuneration. No additional referral items were added, and that was everything for our section.
Thank you very much, Councillor Marshaw. The motion reads that the recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole report related to Finance and Corporate Services section be approved. It's moved by Councillor Marshaw, seconded by Councillor Waters. Comments or questions? Seeing none, we're going to call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. Number 14 is our presentation consideration report for special committee. We have one. The motion reads that the recommendations contained within the special committee of the whole report related to finance and corporate services section be approved. Moved by Councillor Vadabankar, second by Councillor Marchand. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. Number 15, motions of which notice has previously been given. We have none. 16 is notice of motion. Do any members of council wish to present a notice of motion? Seeing none. 17 is consideration of bylaws. Before I read the bylaws, council, does anybody wish to pull any for any further discussion? Seeing none. Motion reads that the council of the town of Penetanguishene introduce the following bylaws. Bylaw 2024-57 being a bylaw to provide for a 2025 interim tax levy for the payment of taxes and to provide for penalty and interest of 15% per annum or 1.25% per month. Bylaw 2024-58 being a bylaw to authorize the temporary borrowing of funds to meet current expenditures until 2025 taxes are collected. Bylaw 2024-59 being a bylaw to authorize the entering into an agreement with the Georgia Bay Snow Riders Snowmobile Club for the 2024 through 2028 winter seasons. Bylaw 2024-60, a bylaw to approve an application to expropriate land, and that the bylaws be read a first time and deemed to be read a second, a third, and carried. I look for a mover. Deputy Mayor LaRose, seconded by Councillor Waters. Further comments? We'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? That is carried. The mayors and deputy mayors serve on county council. Every month, the deputy mayor comes back to you to tell you the work that we're doing at the county of Simcoe. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple of quick things tonight. One was we went through a lengthy process with our insurance, a very similar presentation as we all received tonight. And as you can imagine, there was lots and lots of questions and stuff, but it was received very well. The other thing we did at the county was finalize our budget. So we had a budget coming in at a total of $962 million with an increase that was 3.625%. We hustled it down. That's as good as it could get. And those numbers equate to $10.86 per 100,000 on a tax bill. So that just lets us know where we're at, and it's good to see that that's done. Last thing I'd like to mention, if council will recall, I talked about a bursary program earlier in the year that the county does. And through our annual bursary program to help people with post-secondary education, it provides one individual from each of the 16 municipalities in the county. And we had a recipient from the town of Penetanguishene by the name of Janie Hessler. So they will receive a $3,000 bursary to help with whether it's college or university, I'm not sure, but congratulations to them. And with that, Your Worship, that's it.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. I've had people in the community ask, it is linked on our agenda. Council highlights, the County of Simcoe prepares like a newsletter idea of what we've done. So if you want to see exactly what's done, you can reference that through the agenda package. Moving on, number 19 is our announcements and inquiries. Do any members of council have an announcement or inquiry? Councillor Marchand.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to, as the chair of the Finance and Corporate Service, on behalf of Councillor Waters as vice chair, I would like to thank council for approving the town's 2025 operating and capital budget totaling $24.7 million and the 2026 capital budget of $4.8 million for a total of $29.5 million. The goal was to develop a budget that maintain and enhance the service levels that residents enjoy, focused on key areas that public identified as priorities such as roads and fire service, and keeping the tax rate increase at a reasonable level. This was done through input from the public, council, and management through the town's online budget survey, 2 public consultations, and 2 special committees of the whole budget meetings. Capital investments in 2025 and 2026 totaling $13.5 million, noting notable capital projects include intersection upgrades for Robert Street East and Fuller, expansion of Roads Division Garage in Wash Bay, intersection engineering and design for Dufferin, Burke, Robert Street East, Fox Street Sanitation Sewer Relining, Yeo and Broad, Robert Street West well upgrades, trunk line replacement engineering from Church to Fox, North Wharf engineering and repair, reconstruction of Peel between Robert Street East to Brock Street, asphalt resurfacing on Brunel Side Road, transit bus replacement, Memorial Park concept engineering and design. Council approved a $16 million total operating budget that includes $2.2 million for policing and $4.8 million for the water, wastewater, building and wharf rate support departments, upgrading equipment, technology, online services, transit, and road maintenance continues to be our priority. Free transit for seniors, free public skating, and a recreational subsidy program for low-income families continue in 2025. As everyone faces rising costs in the economy, the town has also been impacted by inflation and escalating construction and operational costs. The town's budget development is a difficult balancing act to be able to provide critical infrastructure and quality services while keeping the financial impact on residents top of mind. The 2025 budget results in a total increase of 4.5%, 2% for operating, 1% for capital, and 1.5% for policing. The overall tax impact is 3.9% or $61.24 per 100,000 of typical residential assessment for municipal, county, and educational property taxes. From 2016 to 2025, the overall tax bill increase has been an average of 1.4% year over year for the last 10 years. I am extremely pleased with the 2025 budget process. Important financial decisions were made by council that will maintain and enhance core municipal services for residents, continue to invest in infrastructure, reduce debt, and support our staff. In closing, I would like to thank council and staff, Carrie Rebiard, Director of Finance and Treasury, Jeff Lees, Chief Administrative Officer, and the entire management team for the significant time and effort that was spent in presenting, preparing, and discussing, and allowing us to finalize the 2025 budget. I look forward to another great year of accomplishment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Any other members? Any announcements or inquiries? Councillor Vedabunker.
Thank you, Worship. Just an inquiry with respect to the Canada Post strike and any adjustments that we've had to make in terms of billing and sending out bills, receiving bills, notices, anything of that nature. I had an inquiry from a ratepayer that was asking about making a payment, and I just wanted to follow up.
Thank you. Celia, is that for you or for Madam Treasurer?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll kick it off and then I'll ask our Director of Finance to kind of complement. We have pushed out some communication to our residents with respect to alternative ways of receiving mail, receiving payments, alternative mechanisms in which residents can provide payment, for example, whether it be taxes or utilities. So we have pushed out as much communication as we can, and we will continue to do so as this strike evolves. I would say that as a municipality, from a communication standpoint as well, we're looking at alternative forms of communication, in particular as we look to push out our next What's Up newsletter in mid to late January in the new year. So, Your Worship, if you don't mind, I'll just ask our Director of Finance if she has anything to add to what I've shared.
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Vedabunker. As well as the communication that's been pushed out, we continue on our website to promote alternative methods of payment. For those that may have wanted to mail in payments previously before the strike, residents can still pay online, at their bank, over the telephone, drop off checks at Town Hall, walk in Town Hall. So there are many other ways to do that, to make payments. In terms of us, it has impacted us in terms of mailings that we would normally do. We had already done our final reminders of tax arrears. Bills had gone out already, so in terms of the timing for that, the biggest impact is our monthly water bills, which are about only a dozen accounts that are billed monthly, the large user accounts. So we will just be either emailing them, and if we don't have an email address, we would just be sending them out as soon as the postal strike is over. Our tax bills and our fourth quarter water bills aren't scheduled to go out until January 2025. So that's, I think, when we might feel an impact if the strike doesn't end by then. And we'll have to probably at some point, if the strike goes on through January, come back to council and amend our bylaw on our interim billing dates that we've already approved the bylaw last month, I guess it was.
Thank you. Council, further announcements or inquiries? I want to start by thanking all of our directors, Andrea and Carrie and Brian, Sherry, Chief Renaud, and Christine and Emily and Jeff and Kelly. We've had a tremendous year. I think we've all worked together marvelously well with the community at the forefront. And I think we've had some great discussion with nothing built around tremendous respect. And I think everyone's envious of us, and really it's the work that you do. So on behalf of our council, thank you for the work you do. I think we have a tremendous team. I truly appreciate everything you do. So thank you so much. To council, thank you. I think we had a tremendous year. I'm looking forward to 25 and building on the work that we've done. Thank you for our discussion. I think we've had another great year. Thanks for coming and putting the community first. So thank you so much. And thanks to our community. I think you have seen this council and staff. We're here for you. We're here to serve you. I'm proud of the work we've done on your behalf. So thank you for the respect and responsibility you've given us. All the best to everyone over the holidays. We wish you nothing but the best into 2025. And if you can, think about those that could use a hand up, whether it's one of our local food banks or service groups or not-for-profits that help others. Please keep them in mind. Council, let's move on to our confirmation bylaw. Our confirmation bylaw reads that the confirmation bylaw 2024-61 be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. Moved by Councillor Marshaw, second by Councillor Darash. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. And motion to adjourn by Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Waters at 8:31. All in favor? We're adjourned. Happy New Year to everyone. We'll be back in 5 minutes to do our committee of the whole. Thank you. Good evening, Council. We're going to call our Committee of the Whole meeting to order for Wednesday, December the 11th, 2024 at 8:40 p.m. We have a motion, number 2, approval of the agenda. It's recommended the Committee of the Whole agenda for December the 11th, 2024 be approved as presented. Look for mover, Councillor Waters, second by Councillor Marchand. Comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? That is carried. Number 3, do any members have a declaration of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we'll move on to presentations, delegations. We have none. Number 5 is our council information package. Do any members wish to pull anything from the council information package for further discussion? Seeing none. The motion reads that the council information package, having been given due consideration, be received for information. It's moved by Councillor Drush, seconded by Councillor Vadabunker. All in favor? And opposed? That is carried. I'm going to turn the chair to Councillor Vadabunker for Transportation Environmental Service. Yes.
Thank you, Worship. So I'm going to speak to the Transportation Environmental Services section. We have no items on the consent agenda. We have no matters for consideration this evening. And on our referrals, we have 2 referrals. The septage disposal and treatment resolution, and that's been updated to Q1 of 2025. And we have the pedestrian crosswalk paintings that I spoke of earlier under at council, and that's reports to come back in the Q1 of 2025. So at this point, I'll just ask if there's any additional referrals that anybody wishes to raise. Seeing none, I'll read the motion that the Transportation Environmental Services section endorse the following additional existing referrals to upcoming agendas, and the one is the septage disposal and the other is pedestrian crosswalk paintings. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Marchand. A seconder, Deputy Mayor. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. I'll go now to the question period from the media and the public. Any questions from the media and the public? Seeing none, I'll turn it back to you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Councillor Vadabunker. We're going to move on to Section B, our Recreation Community Services. Councillor Roux, are you okay if Deputy Mayor chairs this section? It's just hard to see. I think you're in to see the dais and everybody. If you're comfortable, I'm just going to give that to the Deputy Mayor.
Not a problem, Your Worship.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. We're at 7A, consent agenda recommended action that the following consent agenda items having been given due consideration be received for information. We have 3 of them. The first one being the Penetanguishene Public Library Board meeting minutes from September 30th and November 18th. Number 2 is Tourist Information Center 2024 summary. And 3 is York University Agreement and the Ecology Garden. I'm looking for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Marchand, seconded by Councillor Vadabunker. Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? And that carries. Moving down to B, matters for consideration. We do not have any this evening. C is referrals to our upcoming agenda, and that the Recreation and Community Services section endorse the following additional and existing referrals to upcoming agendas and staff. We have the Skateboard Park Review, Cycle of Hope event, Memorial Park Pickleball Courts, Memorial Opportunity, and the Canadian Museum of Water and Georgian Bay Heritage League. Does anybody wish to add any items to the referrals? Councillor Marchand.
No, I would like to make a friendly edit. For Memorial Park Pickleball Courts, I had meant for McGuire Park. It wasn't for Memorial Park. If we could just make that friendly edit, if that's possible.
We can change that, yes.
Thank you. Nothing else to add.
Seeing none that there's none to add, I'll look for a mover. Moved by Councillor Marchand, seconded by Councillor Waters. All in favor? And that is carried. So we're down to 7D, which is question period from the media and public. Do we have any questions? Seeing none, Your Worship, back to you.
Thank you very much. Section C, Planning Community Development Services. Councillor Drush, please.
Thank you very much. So for the Planning Community Development Services, we have 4 items on the consent agenda. And it is recommended that the following consent agenda items, having been given due consideration, be received for information. The first is a memo from the Director of Planning and Community Development regarding appeal of zoning bylaw amendment for 2021 Fox Street. The second is a memo from the Municipal Law Enforcement Officer regarding the monthly activity report for November 2024. The third item is a memo from the Director of Planning and Community Development regarding Environmental Registry of Ontario, amendments to reduce records of site condition that are not supporting brownfields redevelopment, changes to Ontario Regulation 525-97/97 to exempt certain areas from approval under the Planning Act, and approval of changes to Ontario Regulation 299/19 for additional dwelling units. The fourth item is a memo from the Director of Planning and Community Development regarding update on referral for 161 Church Street. Can I get a mover and seconder for this, please? Moved by Councillor Marchand, seconded by Councillor Vita-Moncur. Does anyone have any questions or comments regarding any of these items? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. All in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. We have one matter for consideration. It is the Community Improvement Plans Annual Update, PL-2024-64. It's recommended that Council approve the administrative changes to the Community Improvement Plan, CIP, identified in Staff Report PL-2024-64. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Deputy Mayor LaRose, seconded by Councillor Waters. I trust that you've all read this report and the matrix. Does anyone have any questions regarding this item? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. All in favor? Opposed? The matter, motion carries. Referrals to upcoming agenda / staff. We have a list of referrals still outstanding, and it is recommended that the Planning Community Development Services section endorse the following additional existing referrals to upcoming agendas and staff. And the first item is the cell tower public notification procedure. The second is the HCF affordable housing project. And this matter can actually come off the list because we did deal with this 2 meetings ago. We did have a report that did come to council that addressed this item. The third is 161 Church Street. The next is loitering bylaw. There's also the fence at 7 Water Street, which we did deal with today at our council meeting. And the last item is user fees. So can I get a mover and a seconder to keep the 4 items and taking off the 2 that I've noted as being dealt with? Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Marchand, seconded by Councillor Vita-Moncur. We'll go to the vote. All in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. Does anyone have any additional items that they would like to tack on to this list? Seeing none, we will now go to question period from the media and public. Does anyone have anything to ask or comment? Seeing none, I'll pass it back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor DeRush. We're going to move on to Section D, Finance and Corporate Services section. Councillor Marchand.
Thank you, Your Worship. For Finance and Corporate Services, we do not have any consent agenda items this evening. We have one matter for consideration, and that is Municipal Insurance Pool, Report FIN-2024-34. It's recommended that Staff Report FIN-2024-34 Municipal Insurance Pool be received, and that the Town of Penetanguishene become a founding subscriber of the municipal insurance pool, and further that the Chief Administrative Officer or the Director of Finance / Treasurer or appropriate designate assigned by the Chief Administrative Officer be authorized to represent the town of Penetanguishene on the Municipal Insurance Advisory Board. And finally, that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the form of subscription in the municipalities in the County of Simcoe Subscribers Agreement Sustainability in the form attached. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Waters, second by Mayor Rawson. Any questions or comments with regards to this report? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Next, for items for referral, we have 4 on the list at this time, or 3, excuse me, that the Finance and Corporate Services section endorse the following additional and existing referrals to upcoming agendas and staff. Future items are, so we have paper ballot consideration in the 2026 municipal election, the second non-residential fee review update, and the third item, the warming and cooling center. Can I get a mover and seconder? Mover, Councillor Duras, seconder, Deputy LaRose. Any additions to this list? Seeing none. Oh, sorry, Your Worship, did you have something you'd like to add?
I actually don't. I'm looking to remove tonight. So there's one item on here, Council, non-resident fee review update. I think we've had a lot of discussions about non-resident fees and like. We did add to our budget this year to look to a third party to help us through this process. I think this one doesn't provide enough depth and clarity for staff. And I think they're kind of hung up on the report process. And I think that budget item we talked about will help with that process. So I'm going to recommend that we remove that one until we get more clarity on our end. The second one, I would suggest we remove the warming cooling centers. We did have a report from the fire chief earlier this year. I asked that I go back for the more info. I have had a follow-up with the fire chief and the CO, and it was kind of left that they're going to bring more data back to us about what that looks like. So that's just my request that we could remove those 2 if pleases council.
Can I get someone to second that or support, Your Worship? Councillor Duras, yes.
Can I actually add an item, please?
Sure. Do we have to decide on this one first?
We don't. We can't bundle we could bundle it. Okay, I'll let it go by.
I think we'll maybe get a seconder to remove those. Councillor Waters? No.
Sorry, you already did get a mover and a seconder, so if we could pass this and then we can add the additional referral.
All those in favor? Opposed? None? Thank you. That is carried. Anything else to add?
I would like to add one item. As you may recall, during the budget time period, I did speak about Culture Alliance. I am your representative for the town of Penetanguishene. And Culture Alliance is comprised of the town of Midland, the towns of Midland, Penetang, the townships of Tiny and Tay. And since probably 2019, 2020, together we've celebrated, fostered, promoted cultural resources in the community. Last week, the town of Midland did make the decision to leave Culture Alliance as of April 2025. And this morning, Tay Council also decided to leave the culture as of December 31st, 2024. So I would like to add this as a referral item so that we can gather some information and maybe decide what we will do as a town moving forward with the culture. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that enough direction for staff with regards to that report? Okay. Can we get a seconder for that? Your Worship, was that a second? Okay, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, that is added and that motion's carried. Questions from the media or public at this time regarding this section?
Sorry, Councillor.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Bedevancourt.
Madam Chair, if I may just propose to add another item to the referral list?
Yes, go ahead. My apologies.
No problem. Thank you. Around this time last year, council dealt with a staff report pertaining to electronic signs. And later in 2024, council approved the installation of an electronic sign that I understand from discussing this matter with staff will be installed in 2025. In the report that came forward in January of of this year, there were a number of locations that were identified as possible locations for an electronic sign, and council selected the one that had been recommended first by staff. I'd like to see a program developed that could be implemented over several years through the capital budget for the implementation of electronic signs at various locations around town. So my referral item, Madam Chair, was just to ask for a report from staff about some options with respect to a program or a plan to implement these electronic message board signs in the different locations around town that staff would recommend as being a priority. Thank you.
Thank you. And my apologies. I didn't mean to rush through that section. I missed that you put your hand up. Can we get a seconder for that? Councillor Waters. Is there enough direction and clarity for staff with regards to that request? Okay. We'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That has been added. That motion is carried. There was no questions from the media and public, so back to you, Your Worship.
We're going to look to adjourn our last meeting for 2024 at 8:56. Moved by Councillor Waters, seconded by Deputy Mayor. All in favor? And opposed? We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.